Good. Host Nikki Watson on this wonderful Friday. Trying to figure out the setting here. Here we go. Wonderful. So I hope everybody's having a good day. If you're catching this on the replay, welcome. We do a few things here. One of them is to go beyond the lines, of course, where we don't focus on one particular party over the other, but we are living in the Trump era, and we do have our biases, as journalism is not objective. So welcome. Stay for a while, share with your friends. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid at all. We have a few topics here that we're going to go over today. We have about what happened here? Did we lose it? Did we lose it here? Let's see. Let's go back and see what's going on. Do I need to do the whole intro again? Do I need to do the whole intro again? I'm just going to go with it. It is Friday. And again, as I said, whether you caught it or not, if you're catching this on the replay, thank you for joining, like, and subscribe. We are on Rumble and on YouTube. We do talk about a few different things here. Recently, we've been talking more about the HAG and also if the internet is, we've had so much luck with the internet lately that I feel sort of bad that this is all happening right now. It really shouldn't be. So we're just going to go with it. We have a few topics to discuss today. One of them that Heather Cox Richardson will not discuss, of course, is the peace plan that President Trump has orchestrated and organized with other world leaders to end the war in Gaza, and that is it was no easy feat, and it is exactly what we had all been hoping for and praying for, and it's much more meaningful than some give him credit for, of course. But we have President Putin, who is saying that Trump should actually, in fact, get the Nobel Peace Prize, but Trump doesn't need it. It's definitely a talking point. It definitely comes up. So I wanted to read hard questions remain as Gaza deal takes hold. So there are things to be worked out here, but let me just see what else we have on the agenda that I wanted to go over, because we only have here about 40 minutes. We only have about 40 minutes here. Can you hear that? Very good. Yeah, I don't know what happened in the beginning there. Maybe it was like a thing with just straight up with the internet. Very good. Yes, very good. So, and Fetterman has also been in the news lately because he has been sort of supportive of Trump, and he's been working with our Senator Dave McCormick. And so he's been criticized for being too supportive of Trump and breaking with his party. We have been covering the arc of Fetterman for about, I don't know, maybe 2 or some years now. The arc of Fetterman. And so it does continue, but he has recently come out and he's been talking about just how we have to come together and not be using divisive language. And he will vote with his party on some things, of course, but he's also been towing the party line essentially because he knows how popular Trump is in the state. And but he is I think he's going back to his MAGA roots here, though. I think that's what we're seeing because he is a man of the middle class, right? He is a representative of the middle class. So the middle of the working class. So we will see how the Fetterman arc continues. So I'm just going to read this here. And then the third topic, of course, is that now we could go to this clip. Maybe I can share the clip with myself and then play it on the screen share. So this whole liberal democratic propaganda, a party propaganda talking point is that Antifa doesn't exist. You know, it does not exist. It is an idea. It is basically, it doesn't exist, but it's just an idea. And it actually is, it's an adjective, and it actually just means anti-fascist, which actually just means against fascism. So if you're not anti-fascist, or you're not in support of Antifa, which doesn't exist, then you're a fascist. So basically, we're all fascists, basically, is what they like to say, when in fact, they're actually the fascists. I know. I think we're gonna have to probably, like, you know, let everybody know and like let the cat out of the bag. Like, I hate to like break it to everybody, you know, who's gonna tell them. But you know, so that's not going to be on this show. We're not going to do that on this show. That'll be another show. We're going to just work up to it, probably, really. But we do see that Richardson and Jimmy Kimmel are again sharing talking points, because he again, just like he did with the Groyper, basically lie that she did not retract. They were sharing talking points at that point too. So it's just becoming more and more obvious that, which is super strange, like what's going on there, what's going on behind the scenes there with them all sharing the same talking points, you know, and really just the stuff that she doesn't talk about, right? So it's just this, it's this bifurcated reality. It's these echo chambers. It's this idea that, it's this idea that, you know, Trump supporters and Trump and MAGA and everything is this thing that it's just not. And then that they're in this sort of echo chamber when they are facilitating this like blue sky, just alternate reality that they claim Trump is doing, right? So it's all very incestuous, but we're on the quest. Like, we're here for it. We're checking it out. We're tracking it. We're seeing what everybody's saying. Because really, this is all just we're just a collection of ideas. This is all just really collecting the ideas and looking at them, exploring them, throwing them up against the wall to see what sticks, you know, spending some time with them. We're just trying to get a sense of what people care about, you know, what people think, what people care about, and you know, how we can continue to be thinking people in a world that sometimes does not, depending upon who you're talking about and doing a power analysis, don't want you to be thinking people. So we're going to keep doing it as long as as long as God gives us the good abilities to continue doing it. So let's go, and we're going to read this real quick here, and then we're going to go to the Fetterman breaks with Dems again. Okay, y'all love Fetterman. I sort of always really liked Fetterman. I just didn't like how hard he went in some of these other directions, but you know, and I didn't like how they rolled him out the way that they did when he was clearly really not well. He was sick from his stroke. So I did not like that. How would I feel like they did that to him, but I don't know. I guess he seems to be doing fine now. But it's going to be interesting to see how they flip on him, because before they were like, that's being, that's ableism, you know, like saying that it was a problem that he couldn't complete a thought, he couldn't communicate well, he did not seem like he was doing well, like he wasn't all there, and he also physically wasn't there. Remember, he was in the hospital for a while, and they were saying the narrative, the story, the media lines were like, oh, it's ableism because he has a disability now. And they were running that whole thing. Well, now I wonder if they'll use his disability against him because they don't agree with what he's saying. So we'll see. Washington, with the Gaza war entering its third year, President Donald Trump has achieved something no other world leader has been able to do. Strong arm Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu into the first step of a broader peace deal while persuading other Middle Eastern countries to pressure Hamas. But despite its potentially historic nature, Trump's deal signed in Egypt on Thursday leaves a host of unresolved issues that could still trip up implementation of the initial phase and impede progress toward the next, analysts say. What analysts? Oh, this is Reuters. This is my paper. This is what we're doing. This is on the front page of the paper. While crediting Trump with the most promising breakthrough yet to end the war, experts say the immediate challenge will be to iron out practical details for what has been agreed to on paper, silencing the guns, exchanging Israeli hostages for Palestinian prisoners, and a partial Israeli withdrawal inside the devastated enclave. This is today's paper. They just had some the swap, right? After that, negotiators must tackle other parts of Trump's 20-point plan over which the two sides remain bitterly at odds, including the disarmament of Hamas, which the militant group rejects a formal end to the conflict in Gaza's post-war governance. None of this was dealt with in 3 days of indirect negotiations in that's not it. In what? Where are we at here? Oh, I tell you what, guys. It's not on this page. Okay, it's not here. I swear it's not here. The analysis, indirect negotiations, and then there's the Palestinians, Jews, in Western Pennsylvania experience mixed emotions. Well, of course. Okay. None of this was dealt with in 3 days of indirect negotiations in, I guess I'm just going to have to. Oh, Egyptian beach resort, Sharm el-Sheikh, where Trump had sent his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff to help mediate, but a quick resolution appears unlikely. There is an enormous number of potential sticking points that are going to really determine whether this ceasefire ends up being the beginning of peace or just another twist in the cycle of violence. A former deputy U.S. National Intelligence Officer on the Middle East. So people are celebrating the ceasefire deal Thursday in the Hostages Square in Tel Aviv, Israel. So they're asking a former deputy U.S. National Intelligence Officer who has nothing to do with the this guy has nothing to do with the situation. So I don't know why. I know why Reuters is calling him and asking him his opinion. Okay, so let's go to the next here. Trump's strategy. Just weeks ago, peace in Gaza seemed more distant. Is that a word? More distant. Is distant a word? I feel like it actually is a word. Distant. Okay. Just weeks. We also do impressions here. I also do impressions of myself speaking correctly. And also, we don't have any impersonations right now, but who knows? Okay, just weeks ago, peace in Gaza seemed more distant than ever after Israel launched a strike on Hamas leadership in Qatar, a U.S. ally, but Trump's aides decided to turn his anger at Netanyahu into pressure on the Israeli leader to accept a framework for ending the war, which they presented to Muslim leaders on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly last month, according to people familiar with the matter. This is so stupid. I'm sorry. These are not okay. They're being very complimentary to Trump, but they're also actually not providing good information because they don't have any good sources right now. I mean, possibly because they're not getting any information, which is part of the strategy, I imagine. Now, yes, U.S. to deploy troops to Israel for task force. So yes, this was posted and promoted. The United States will deploy up to 200 troops to Israel to establish a task force to support stabilization efforts in Gaza, but no Americans are expected to be deployed into the Palestinian enclave, U.S. officials said Thursday. The U.S. military's Central Command will stand up to the task force known as the Civil Military Coordination Center. Israeli cabinet ratifies ceasefire deal on hostages. Israel's government ratified a ceasefire with the Palestinian militant group Hamas on Friday, clearing the way to suspend hostilities in Gaza within 24 hours and free Israeli hostages held there within 72 hours after that. The Israeli cabinet approved the deal early Friday, around about 24 hours after mediators announced the agreement, which calls for the release of Israeli hostages in exchange for Palestinian prisoners and the start of a phased withdrawal of Israeli troops from Gaza under President Donald Trump's initiative to end the 2-year war in Gaza. The government has just now approved the framework for the release of all the hostages, the living and the deceased. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's English language X account said, the war has deepened Israel's international isolation. You think? And upended the Middle East, having evolved into a regional conflict that has drawn in Iran, Yemen, and Lebanon. It also tested the U.S.-Israeli relationship, with Trump seeming to lose patience with Netanyahu and pressuring him to reach a deal. Israelis and Palestinians alike, this is also Reuters, Israelis and Palestinians alike rejoiced after the deal was announced, the biggest step yet to end 2 years of war in which over 67,000 Palestinians have been killed and returned the last hostages seized by Hamas in the deadly attacks that started the conflict. Hamas's exiled Gaza chief, Khalil al-Hayya, said he had received guarantees from the United States and other mediators that the war is over. An Israeli government spokesperson said the ceasefire while 26 are presumed dead and the fate of 2 is unknown. Hamas has indicated that recovering the bodies of the dead may take longer than releasing those who are alive. Once the agreement is operating, trucks carrying food and medical aid will be able to surge into Gaza to help civilians, hundreds of thousands of whom have been sheltering in tents after Israeli forces destroyed their homes and razed their cities. Okay. 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 So then let's, is there anything else that we can cover about that right now? I'm not sure. Let me see here real quick. Yeah. So Fetterman breaks with Dems again. Pennsylvania senators' frequent siding with GOP estranges him from many members of his party. U.S. Senator John Fetterman went against the Democratic grain again. Fetterman on Wednesday was the lone Democrat in the Senate to vote against a measure to prevent Donald Trump from using military force against suspected drug traffickers in the Caribbean without congressional authorization. Well, that's interesting that that's the vote that he took on. Even with the support of 2 Republicans, the Democratic motion failed on a 48-51 vote. On social media Wednesday night, Fetterman was quick to praise Trump for his role in brokering the first phase of a peace deal between Israel and Hamas. I congratulate Trump on this historic peace plan that releases all the hostages. Now, enduring peace in the region is possible. Fetterman posted on X, our parties are different, but we have a shared ironclad commitment to Israel and its people. Fetterman's office did not respond to a request for comment Thursday. Fetterman has gained attention along with disdain from some in his own party and respect from many Republicans for being willing to break with Democrats and work with Republicans and the Trump administration on certain issues. Last week, Fetterman was one of just 3 members of the Democratic caucus to vote in favor of a GOP plan to fund the government through late November before the shutdown took effect. He also voted in favor of a separate Democratic proposal to fund the government through October and extend The Affordable Care Act tax credit set to expire at the end of the year. Yeah, they're annoyed with him. I'm interested to see how it sort of pans out as the election starts coming up, and because Democrats are just, if Democrats, I have a friend, he's running for school board. He was on our show before a couple years ago. He ran for school board, and I bet you he'll win this time, but he didn't win last time. He was a write-in candidate though, but I bet you he'll win this time. So good for him for running again. 33% of Dems approve of Fetterman in poll. Fetterman has voted to confirm half of Trump's 22 cabinet nominees, tied with U.S. Senator Jeanne Shaheen. For the most among members of the Democratic caucus, he was the only Democrat to vote against a measure to prevent further military action against Iran without congressional authorization. He was the only Democrat to vote against a measure to prevent military. Fetterman's approach has made him more popular with Republicans than Democrats, according to a Quinnipiac University poll released last week. The poll shows that 62% of registered Republicans approve of the job Fetterman is doing, compared to just 33% of Democrats. A January 2024 poll showed only 12% of Republicans had a favorable opinion of Fetterman, while 76% of Democrats did. So Fetterman, aside from his support, his funding from AIPAC, aside from that, he has seen, we saw him in 2024 really move towards these clips of him saying, like, Trump's really popular around here. We're not going to get anywhere if we ignore that. I had been sort of watching him to see what he was saying and how he was saying things leading up to the election, because, he's going to do things too that are in his favor. And we saw that with some other, the other senator. It was the guy that inevitably lost, the Democrat Bob Casey, who lost to Dave McCormick, who's a Republican who won. Bob Casey, he was doing, he had like run an ad that was not anti-Trump. He was like almost, I forget how the ad was, but it was almost saying like not anti-Trump. I mean, it was like, I don't know if he was like trying to almost do like a neutral Trump ad, like something about, anyway. So there was like buzz at that time, like leading up to the 2024 election, that they were, realizing and seeing that the numbers were in the favor of Trump and they were not in their favor. And so they were not doing these extreme ads where they were trying to be completely anti-Trump and try and ostracize people. And Fetterman really never shifted out of that. When Dave McCormick won, Fetterman got a lot of heat from Democrats because he did an event with Dave McCormick. He went to Selena Zito's book thing. She's a writer and a journalist, but she also wrote a book in 2016 about the popularity of the populist movement that is Trump and among working people. And so she went around and she interviewed a bunch of people from in not just rural Pennsylvania, but because in the Rust Belt, right? I mean, we have people we have our towns, some of our towns specifically are from the old steel industry, right? And that's the whole thing with Nissan Steel and with saving the steel industry and keeping it in the U.S. And what President Trump had done then was to create the business relationship, or to solidify it rather, and do the deal with the Japanese company. So, but we have we are known for our Rust Belt areas, which is this, essentially like post-industrial now, where we had a lot of manufacturing, and now we have the old the buildings that are empty now. And so the stories that Selena Zito really focused on and why Trump is so popular in this state, as well as the other swing states, if you look at places like Michigan. And, she did all this, interviewing people, just put this book together. And she also covered him when he was in Butler, Pennsylvania. She was there. So she covered that story about the attempted assassination on President Trump. And so she just has a knack for having her hand on the pulse of this area, of the type of people that live in not just rural Pennsylvania, but in these sort of, again, Rust Belt towns. It's interesting because Fetterman would call them the left behind. And that's why we've talked about this with Fetterman being MAGA, because he would talk about the marginalized communities, but he would also talk about the left behind communities. If you really think about his brand and sort of the work that he's done, and really how the Democratic Party used to be, right? Because Trump used to be a Democrat, right? And so he is, again, what we've said on the show, which is actually how we counter the claims by Richardson and the usual suspects, is that Trump is a moderate. Okay, he's not like your dad and your grandfather's Republican. So that's how he needed to win, and that's really how he garnered so much support, because the working class has been captured by not just the left, but the liberal institutions and this Democratic Party machine that is funded by invested interests like globalist interests like George Soros, but just this big monster that did not follow through on their promises to the left, to the working class, to the middle class, to labor. And what also happened is that small businesses, they also bared the brunt of the regulations that big businesses can eat, right? Your big corporations and your big businesses and stuff. So the interesting thing about MAGA is that it's actually a connection between, it's a coalition of small businesses and union and labor, and that we're not in, we're not against each other, that we're all working together to make things better, but we need an economy that has the best interest of the American worker, right? Not just selling out to foreign companies, not just having global citizens that have multiple passports, that aren't investing in America. And so Selena Zito has her finger on the pulse on these things, because she talks to so many people in these areas. Fetterman talking about the left behind, that he represents the left behind. He is from Braddock. His story is because he actually is not, he doesn't come from like working class, but he lives in that old car dealership, like he is, his brand is, little grunge and like wearing the gym shorts and stuff. It's very on brand for him, but he's way more MAGA than he is, because MAGA is the old left, dude. Like, right? That's what we're saying. Like, it's the small business, the working class, the lower middle class, labor, all coming together in a historic bloc, working with an administration that is also reeling it back in, telling everyone to fuck off, and reeling back in our resources and righting the ship, and it not being a free ride, ending the corruption in the places and the crime and stuff that has just not benefited us. So it's obviously it is a downsizing of empire, which is beneficial for everyone. For multipolarity, it's that you don't want one to be on top, and that has what has happened, because then the inheritors of that on top, they don't know what to do with it, and they fuck it all up, just like they have been, because they did not earn it. They did not walk in the shoes of. They don't know. They don't have that grit. They don't have the experience. They don't have the intuition. That's the thing about the manufactured grid. What we want our children to understand is because if you don't build it with your own hands, you don't know what it does. You don't know how it works. You don't know how to fix it, right? So it's like, how do we teach the next generation, and how have we interpreted all of that, and just looking at patterns, I was born in the 80s, and then you have the 90s and the 2000s, right? And then our age group, right? So we're looking at different age groups of who's doing what time did we come from? And, you talk about Antifa, and, where are these people, like what time and place are these people coming out of? So you have commentary, you have like Richardson, talking shit out of her ass, saying, and they're all saying it, that all the same propagandists are saying it, like Antifa doesn't exist. And it's like, well, no, they do. They do. And they're like, what do you mean? Is it like an idea, or like, oh, you mean it's just I'm pretty sure everybody's an anti-fascist. Fascism, when it is not the same situation as it is today. Fascism, as described historically, is not the same as it is today. We have corporatism. We've had corporatism for a number of years, and it's because of the two-party system and the politicians and everything. But the onus was on the Democratic Party, because they took over, saying, we're going to do this for labor, we're going to do this for healthcare. And the economy has just gotten worse. It hasn't gotten better. People's lived experiences and the cost of living has gotten worse. Like we think about your parents or your grandparents, they may have been on one income, and they were able to buy a home. They could have a mom stay at home and have, a bunch of kids and go to church and, have 2 cars and, whatever. And it's like, everybody is living paycheck to paycheck. People are struggling, and the divide between, people, right? We saw that with the pandemic, with the scamdemic. We saw that with the greatest, wealth transfer or whatever, how Walmart was able to stay open, and, small businesses had to close. And I don't even know what percentage of small businesses that closed that will never open again because of it. And so that has a trickle down effect that we're going to continue to see the results of. So when they talk about authoritarianism and they talk about fascism now, it's so laughable, because I don't know where these people were in 2020 when they shut down, when they divided essential and non-essential businesses, when they kept kids in masks for a full year. Like, even after the emergency declaration, we had to go through and put it on the ballot to get out of an emergency situation, just so we could get kids out of masks, just so we could open up restaurants again and not put tables. It was ridiculous. The consequences of the measurements based on what we have now, and we see how they hid information and how they used studies that were not substantiated. I don't know where everybody was, but everybody, all of these experiences got kicked off of the public platform in the digital commons, funded by big tech, who colluded with the government. Not fascism, though. Not corporatism. Not the government colluding with big tech to silence Americans, sanction them, right? Because if you had your business on Instagram, if you had your business on Twitter, not to mention actually closing down businesses. Like, how is this not? Why do we have to keep explaining this to everybody? Like, they closed down businesses. People's entire lives they spent building up these businesses, and they had to close them all. I mean, not all of them, but some of them, but they had to close their business, which is what they, they're all, meaning they gave it their all, and they had to close it down. But yet these other things were allowed to stay open, right? You see how fucked up that is? So then a ton of people, including my friend who I said is going to win school board, he lost his job. He worked for the I think the parks department, because he wouldn't get the vaccine. Huh. And people are still talking about getting the vaccine. You want to talk about that? What vaccine? What virus? Oh, Antifa. Antifa doesn't exist. Antifa doesn't exist. Like, what are y'all talking about? Give me 1 second. Go ahead, go girl. Okay. Anyway, so I was just ranting, and I think my kid's going to be coming home from school here, so I don't know if I'm going to be hollered back at you, meaning he's going to holler at me for something. So Selena Zito has her finger on the pulse because of the plight of really how MAGA became what it is today. And people are like, MAGA extremists, and I also saw her post like, is Trump losing popularity? Is Trump losing power? Like it reminds me of the lead up to 2024 and this huge thing about like Trump as a dictator and and just all the slanderousness that happens. And I don't know if people understand the working class component of MAGA. And because they don't see what Trump's doing from an economic perspective, and they don't believe that he is doing the things that he appears to be doing. Because the other component to that would be to be recognizing that we are downsizing, and so again, there has to be this analysis of power, and it also has to do with funding sources like AIPAC, but it also has to do with, global banks and multipolarity, because it has to do with the polls of other countries and other world leaders. And so what has been happening during the Trump era is that the axis of power has gone, and this is what Blinken was talking about in, I think, 2021. He said that this is the end of the post Cold War order, that historians and people are going to be talking about this time, because Russia is not able to be treated in the same way that they thought they could do back in even before then. If you think about too, with like the bombing of Yugoslavia, and just again like the war mongering and the invasion of Iraq. If you just look at just historically the things that the United States has contributed to and been a part of, that is not the era in which we are in anymore. And so Trump has been a part of that because he is also doing domestic affairs here, and really doing domestic policy. We see that with even the things J.D. Vance says. J.D. Vance was anti-Trump, and everybody wants to speculate about him. But they really, he is the hillbilly elegy that was put out on Hulu with, that Hillary Clinton's project. So he sort of twisted around. Yeah, we have Silicon Valley, and we have, David Sachs, and we have all these people that are now, coming together with the Trump administration. Not everybody's on the same page. Everyone wants to talk about, Richardson wants to scare everybody about Christian nationalism and Project 2025 and John Vogt and a Christian technocracy, and they're so worried about The Handmaid's Tale and all of these things with like literally no evidence. It's so speculative, and it's these stories to get people worried and nervous and activated to go to the No Kings protest. Like, this is politics. So on one hand, I definitely think that Richardson is responsible for a number of things, but this is politics. The Jimmy Kimmel Show is politics. It's activating people it's giving people misinformation. It's giving people this, it's narrative constructing. It's doing Democratic Party propaganda, of course. It's doing anti-Trump stuff, of course, because you could even just be neutral on Trump. But why do you have to run the narrative that he is not doing well? And where is he? Like, where is he? He's MIA. He's MIA. And it's like he was just with Netanyahu the day before, and he is out. He was just out with recently he was out with his granddaughter playing golf. She posts on TikTok and stuff. But just on like the day after, she kept saying like, where is he? Where is he? He had Mark Carney there at the office or whatever. So wherever they're at there. What is that place called when they do this in front of the, what is that place called when they sit in front of the fireplace? Yeah, there's just so much going on all the time, just every single day. So I don't know if we want to go to the Antifa clip of, yeah, my kid's texting me here. Oh. Okay, actually, I have to leave here. I have about 10 more minutes. What do we want to do? Do we want to go to the Antifa bit? So, I'm familiar with, I hear Antifa, right? I hear Antifa because that's what I hear in the media, in the and everything like that. But I mean, listening to XF and people that were there and who are more coming from, the origin story of how this made itself into the United States and the difference between Antifa in the United States and in Europe, Antifa. Okay, Antifa? Yeah, we'll go with that. But it doesn't exist. So, no, it's like, it's so just to be clear, so Antifa is it is a movement. You can look it up. I don't know why they're pretending like it doesn't exist, because they're saying it's like right-wing commentators that are making this up, when I don't know. I mean, I guess, should we just go to it real quick here? Oh my. I've been having here. I mean, it's just, I know it's Wikipedia. I get it. It's Wikipedia, but let's just do it. Okay. Okay. Antifa is a left-wing, anti-fascist, and anti-racist political movement. So it's not that it's it is sometimes described as a highly decentralized array of autonomous groups in the United States. Antifa political activism includes nonviolent methods of direct action, such as poster and flyer campaigns, mutual aid speeches, protest marches, and community organizing. Now, okay, here's the thing. If this, this is the thing. The English word Antifa is a loan word from the German Antifa, where it is a shortened form of the word anti-fascist. Short-lived group. According to the Anti-Defamation League, the term Antifa is often misapplied to include all counter-protesters. Yeah, so listen. So I understand, like, that, the same thing that they say about MAGA. Like, I get the integrity of, well, just because of the fighting for the integrity. Okay. And the thing about organizations and left-wing organizations and how they run and how they, I mean, the communist groups, the Marxist groups, the anarchist groups, the socialist groups, how they organize. how they have organized in the past, okay, and where they come from, and how that has evolved over the years, and what we mean by like a movement or like an organization, right? So you would say like MAGA is a movement, and if you looked up what is MAGA, depending upon who wrote it, they'll say it's racist, right? I mean, I just saw a girl do a thing where she like just was wearing a MAGA hat, and she like went out onto the thing, and she went into like a queer parade or something because she's a lesbian, and she went out into a queer parade, and she said that like people were just, you know, they have built this, again, bifurcated reality where people just experience things and see things, and it's all because of this isolated virtual space. Like, things are amplified. Things are amplified. So we have to just recognize that everything that that we're seeing online, right, is just being disseminated, and we're filtering it. But when it comes to how recruitment for groups has happened in the past organically, because people are out on the streets, people are out in real life, right? As opposed to now, a lot of things are online, right? So groups, so people that kids, young people that are isolated, and even older people that are watching Richardson's Facebook page, that are online, they are being, it's predatory because it's drawing people in virtually, which is so wild, because you could just be sitting at home and you can be, again, immersed in this culture that is, how real is it? And it can be very real to people, and especially our belief systems, how these things affect our belief system. So there's a lot of things that have to occur from critical thinking perspective, from thinking clearly, and not everybody can do that. So the same way that a young person who is vulnerable is getting recruited into these organizations is the same way that vulnerable people can get recruited online in the mental space to be contributing or involved in or committed to or invest in online ideas that are circulating online. So when we talk about whether something's an organization or not or whatever, there are groups, there are Antifa groups. So, to say that like it doesn't exist, is not true, but I see how they are trying to do this thing where they, are like, oh, they're just people together protesting. Like, it's just, so they're denying the facts of the case, which actually, if you go to 2020 and you go to Twitter and Jack Dorsey, and how Jack Dorsey basically co-opted the Black Lives Matter, which was an organic movement, hashtag Black Lives Matter, if you remember that time, he actually co-opted it and turned it into something that it was, where it was the 97% peaceful protests that ended up in, burning down and domestic terrorism, essentially, is to use violence and fear to intimidate the population, to block streets so that people can't get to their jobs. They can't go to the grocery store. They can't do their thing. They're basically blocking the streets. They're basically taking over public spaces. You see? So, I get what they're saying, but that doesn't deny the fact that everybody that needs to know about this knows about it. President Trump knows about all these things. And so we can just go to what, oh, here she is. She's like, okay.
Hey, folks. Minneapolis. Oh, two of you right in a row. Plattsburgh, New York, where my brother-in-law is from. Recently, he's from Maine originally. Water to the U.S. in those small boats, so it doesn't add up. I mean, the administration has never said has never shown any evidence to lawmakers or to the public that they're actually hitting drug dealers.
Oh, yeah. Well, so who are they hitting, I wonder?
To what he thinks of this white world. But the problem with that is it involves getting rid of the Democrats who are protecting the idea of a multicultural democracy.
I actually reading. I do think she's reading
to
from a
be
teleprompter.
Fentanyl, which comes from Mexico, from precursor chemicals that are made in China. And that's what the Biden administration worked to do, was to break that cycle so that China would crack down on the shipping of precursor chemicals. And the administration, that both the Mexican and the American administrations, were cracking down on the financing of what are essentially at this point factories building fentanyl in Mexico. But the people that,
oh, she says some wild shit about,
if he invokes the Insurrection Act,
yeah, he's not going to do the Insurrection Act, but
on TV, Trump watches him.
Right.
J.B. Pritzker is there. And I remember when it was clear that Twitter was going bad, a number of us who didn't know each other in person,
I'm not sure I'm going to be able to find
a lot about how this administration is going outside the Constitution, because you can declare an emergency and then do whatever you want. And if you can do that, you can make everything. Who died said, my husband was a fisherman. And of course, there appear to be. One is Russell Vought at the Office of Management and Budget, and I'm not going to talk more about him today, I don't think. But the other,
dude, where's the
democracy? So one of the things he is doing is he is trying to declare war completely black. And I'm just looking around my kitchen like, what am I doing here? So it can happen. It's only happened once, but
oh yeah, when Stephen Miller
2020, to get people to turn out and create a situation that might look,
oh, here we go,
kind of troops. So that whole concept of creating an insurrection and saying you can put troops on the streets because of that is, to go back to that question, very much about 2026. It is very clear to everybody that this administration is profoundly unpopular, and that when it goes, not if it goes, when it goes, we're going to look at an entirely new country. And so those people who are wedded to the idea of their ideology of Christian nationalism or of white nationalism, in Miller's case, or even just of power, even just people who want to be making bank on this administration, people, as a number of them are doing everything they can to hold on to that power. And this is part of the whole attempt to keep the idea of there being an insurrection going on in Chicago or Portland. Why those cities? Somebody asked here, because Portland, I think they thought might be easy after 2020 to get people to turn out and create a situation that might look as if it were an insurrection. LA, similarly. Chicago, because it would be a real prize for Trump, because J.B. Pritzker is there, and because he has, he resents J.B. Pritzker.
Yeah, that's not true.
Investigations, it sure looks bad. More because it's a cesspool.
About Twitter
information, and you should, Mary, that you won't vote against whoever does win. I mean, sorry.
Sorry guys, I thought I was going to be able to find the spot where she said I am Antifa. Actually, how does she even say that? I have to go, but we're going to play it right here.
Insurrection Act, and that would give him on a case about the deployment of National Guard idea of their ideology of Christian nationalism. When I think they thought to invoke the insurrection, which isn't even a thing. And that would give him the power to use the troops against the people that the administration is calling traitors, is calling un-American, is saying, you know, they are now saying that anybody who speaks up against Trump is Antifa, which isn't even a thing. It's the idea that you don't want fascism. I guess I'm Antifa, right? And they're running this whole idea that there's this organized group of people who are somehow a conspiracy theory, which is just bonkers. I'm sorry, just bonkers. So
this whole group of people, and it's just a conspiracy theory, and it's just bonkers. Okay, fine. But she says Antifa too, huh? It's Antifa. The internet's going in and out here. I think that's my cue to bid you adieu. Thank you so much for joining me today. Again, like and subscribe, and I will catch you next time.